But we have a story on Cultimac. Let me bring this up. All M3 MacBook Pros reviewed, same cars, better engine, right? So now you have an M3 version, the M3 Pro version, the M3 Max version. And then also, there was also a great piece from MacRumors, Apple Silicon Buyer's Guide, which chip should you choose. I found this to be really helpful too. So there's a lot of great information in both these, and I'll kind of be taking bits and pieces from both of these stories to make sense of everything that happened. But effectively, the way I've been looking at this is the M3 MacBook Pro is essentially a MacBook Air Pro. So what you would normally get in a MacBook Air, right, the base level chip, the M3, which, by the way, the current MacBook Air doesn't even have the M3. They're still using the M2. They're taking that and they're putting it into the body of a MacBook Pro. So what does that get you? It gets you, well, I think the big thing is it gets you the better speaker system, the better microphones, and it gets you the Pro Motion display. So you're getting all the accoutrement of the MacBook Pro, but the heart is effectively a MacBook Air with the performance of the base M series chip. Now, that's not to say that that's bad, because there's a ton of benchmarking that has happened here. I have watched
the machine it replaces is the same. The machine it replaces, the 13-inch MacBook Pro with M2, also just had a base chip, but it didn't even have any of those, nicer features like the better display, the extra ports.
The ports, yeah.
That's true. You get the extra ports. That is also true. Although you get 2 Thunderbolt ports instead of 3 with the better M Pro. I keep calling it the M Pro. The Pro and the Max series chips. But you get much better performance over the M2, the base M2 chip. So there's been a ton of benchmarking that has happened. I've watched so many freaking benchmarking videos. And benchmarking is not straightforward, right? Because there are so many different tests that people can run. I mean, there's Cinebench, there's Geekbench, there is Final Cut Pro and exporting tests and Blizzard and Wizard. I mean, I'm just making stuff up now, but there's all sorts of stuff. And so it's kind of hard to contextualize, okay, like how much better performance are we getting here? And I do think a good way of doing it is looking at the Geekbench scores and looking at the single-core performance and the multi-core performance, because that kind of gives you like a raw benchmark of how much better the CPU is. And then, of course, there's GPU tests, of course. So I think what it comes down to is this. In the Geekbench 6 results, the results were this. The M3 chip is about 20% faster than the M2 chip. That's a big performance difference, right? So if you're looking at the base level MacBook Pro, I actually do think that the performance increase you're going to get there is going to be substantial. And I think that is one that a lot of people are going to be very happy with. In fact, I think it's the new best value play. Whereas before, I probably would have said like the M2 Pro series MacBook Pro might have been the best value play. I actually don't even think you should buy that or consider that computer anymore, because they nerfed it so hard. And we could talk about that in a little bit. So about 20% better CPU performance in the M3 version MacBook Pro over the previous M2 version. Okay, I'm going to talk about the M3 performance next. So this is where Apple really went bonkers. So you're looking at about a 50% increase in performance in the M3 Max over the M2 Max if you get the best level M3 Max chip, which will cost you $4,000. It has 16-core CPU, 40-core GPU, bonkers performance. I mean, from the benchmarks I have seen, this might be the biggest increase in performance that we've seen in the MacBook Pro ever. I mean, ever. It is, in many tests, it is beating the M1 Ultra. The M1 Ultra, which is the double M1 Max chips. It's beating that in most of the benchmarks that I've seen. There's a few where the M1 Ultra still wins. And it's even competing with the M2 Ultra in some tests. So this thing is absolutely bonkers. The GPU performance is off the charts, right? Blows away the M2 Max. The M3 Max MacBook Pro, like the top level that they sell, is better than the M2 Max in every single regard. Performance-wise, SSD wise, I mean, you name it, it is just a killer machine. But
It looks like, if I can interject for a moment, it looks
please
like
do.
across the board at these graphs that you have from the Mac Rumor story, if you're comparing M1 to M3, you get better performance on M3 if even if you go down a whole class of chip lower. Like for example, the M3 outperforms the M1 Pro. The M3 Pro outperforms the M1 Max. The M3 Max outperforms the M1 Ultra. Not by a little margin. It's a pretty significant margin in a lot of these.